afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Sneha Jadhav, and welcome to Weekly Wednesday. Thank you for listening in today. And we are super excited today to bring in Robert Schwenker back. And our own Paria will be hosting this today with Robert. So thank you for joining in. Thanks, Sudha, for bringing all of us together. And with that, without further ado, I would like to actually hand it over to Paria to take it forward, Paria.
Thank you, Sneha, for the introduction to weeklywed. And hello, weeklywed community, and for those new who are joining us today. My name is Paria Serene, and I'm excited to be helping with the co-hosting today. And I'm a college student pursuing IT, and you may also know me as on Team weeklywed. And I'm really excited for today's weeklywed because, as you may know, Robert has joined us before on weeklywed, but today's session is especially hands-on and interactive as he will be doing his workshop. And if you haven't met Robert before, I'll just introduce him here. Robert is a San Francisco-based tech veteran specializing in innovative tech education with a current focus on blockchains and generative AI and extensive global business experience. So the agenda for today is Robert is going to come on now, and he will do his interactive hands-on session, and we will also go to a closing Q&A. So hand it over to Robert.
Good morning. Good day, all. Thank you very much, weeklywed and Sudha, and all for having me. Today's session will look at a number of capabilities of prompt engineering, and we'll look at it not only from the text perspective, but also from generating images and code. This is intended to be a hands-on session if you have those capabilities, though I'm also going to deliver this as if one is just watching, and also if one is just simply listening as in a podcast format. And so feel free to raise your hands, feel free to add questions to the chat, and we'll take our first question from Sudha Jamthe. Please go ahead.
Hi, Robert. I just want to make sure that we missed out an announcement. We have a select set of people here on Zoom, and there are other people who are watching on live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube. So I'm planning to field questions from LinkedIn and bring it here for you. So for those of you watching on LinkedIn, feel free to add questions or comments, and I'll bring it here to Robert. And one announcement is, because we are recording and we'll make this available later, I just want to make sure that everybody who's here on Zoom go off camera if you don't want to be in the recording. And if you don't want to speak up and your voice also get recorded, then you can chat your questions. So by showing your face or your voice, you're giving us permission to record you. So we won't have any option to go edit and remove people or do anything later. So just want to put that out there. Thank you, Robert. Back to you. I'm excited about today's session.
Okay, thank you, Sudha. So again, we'll approach this from a listen-only format as well as a view-only, and then make it an interactive where people have tools to interact. For those of you who are on the Zoom session, if you are planning to interact and you are using particular AI generation chatbots or image generation systems and would like to indicate which ones you're using in the chat, that would be very interesting. So let us continue on. A little bit about my background. I've worked a great deal with blockchain and fintech ecosystems. I specialize in the startup hackathon accelerator space, and I've taken certain initiatives globally in the blockchain space and encountered people from beginning levels to boardroom levels, and continue to educate in the technology space. So today we'll look at what is prompt engineering and its importance, and we'll also do some deep diving into engineering text prompts specifically. As you may have heard that AI, you may have heard that AI is this, ChatGPT itself is this AI that was heard around the world. And this was a comment by the NVIDIA CEO, in his interviewing of OpenAI's Ilya Sutskever. And this was quite remarkable. Just earlier this year, we had a adoption of ChatGPT in literally 5 days within the last year. Up to 1 million users adopted ChatGPT, as it were, within just less than a week. Quite remarkable relative to so many other apps that have taken so long to get that kind of attraction. And within 2 months, nearly 100 million users were using ChatGPT globally. And as you may know, a number of countries do not allow ChatGPT as of yet. I recently learned that Saudi Arabia, for instance, just allowed ChatGPT. The interface you might be very well familiar with. It's easy to get to ChatGPT by opening up chat.openai.com. So for those of you who are engaging interactively, please do open up ChatGPT if you would like. And of course, there are other generative AI text applications, and these include Bard from Google, and that's easily accessed by bard.google.com. You typically sign in with your Gmail account. And more recently, Bard gives you some preliminary instructions to engaging with Bard as a chatbot. And Claude, often I've found it down for system maintenance and such, but when it is up, it also has prompts for starting chats with the chatbot, and it also gives different, it gives you a list of your history, as do the other systems, Bard and ChatGPT. So for any of you who may be doing interactive sessions, please do consider opening up Claude.ai, Bard.google.com, or ChatGPT.openai.com. And lastly, but not least, there's also Hugging Face. So that's easily accessed by hf.co/chat. And this is the Hugging Face input that you can use. So let's turn to the question is, what is prompt engineering? And for any of you who may be using a chatbot, you could prompt your chatbot with this particular question. You could prompt your chatbot for what is prompt engineering just like that. You could also say, what is prompt engineering in less than a number of words, in less than 10 words, in less than 100 words, or up to 1,000 words. You may also ask it, what is prompt engineering, and have it tell you in a different language. So if we look a little closer at prompt engineering, we may see it as a means of designing and optimizing prompts. And you're basically asking an artificial intelligence system to give an output. So the input is the prompt, the output on the background. The output comes from the actual models on which the chatbots were trained. So these are called language models, or also large language models. And these may consist, the prompts themselves may consist of text. Typically, if we're talking about using image generation systems, then you would also provide it text, but in some cases you may provide it in image for a system to start from, to manipulate that image. You may provide data and or code for prompt systems as well. And similarly, outputs may consist of text, images, data, code, audio, music, and to some extent video. So there's a number of outputs that may be there. However, in the course of this webinar, we'll focus mainly on text, but also images if that's of interest. So in a little bit more depth, when we talk about prompt engineering, we should look at NLP, or natural language processing, and machine learning. So we as users, as prompt engineers, design and optimize prompts to get the output that we're looking for. And depending on the chatbot, there's different models that they leverage. So in the case of ChatGPT, GPT-3, GPT-4 are examples of language models that they have been trained upon. So if we look at the importance of prompt engineering, it's been extraordinary how we have been able to get creativity out of AI. And this was not expected. And if we imagine that there is a new means of generating innovation, it certainly has been these chatbots. So we're essentially guiding machine learning models for specific things such as images or text or sound. And the idea is that we can tailor interactions with users and thus for our customers in their experiences. So we may use prompt engineering for strategizing. We may look at business goals. We may look at consumer journeys, any number of things to drive innovation via text and or images and or code and such. The fact that prompt systems, chatbots, are universally available really give sort of a level playing ground to some extent for capabilities that typically were reserved for knowledge workers. And what's very interesting is that these language models, these chatbots built upon these language models, really have some context or some know about different global cultures. And one may ask a chatbot how to adapt their product or service to a different market. So imagine that you are trying out prompts and you may be focused upon a product. And if so, you could enter into your prompt system, into your chatbot for a particular product. Imagine how this product may be advertised in a different country or in a different region. So for those of you who are working interactively with a chatbot, perhaps start with a product or service that you would like to explore. And you may ask the chatbot how to apply this particular service to a different region. Similarly, there's new standards that are being set with regards to, let me say there are new standards that are evolving that will influence best practices for using of chatbots and such. I think there has been quite a lot of concern about the potential negative aspects of what chatbots can output. And there has been considerable efforts globally to begin to set policy and eventually standards for how such systems may operate. And it's been very interesting, as not only has there been great consumer adoption of chatbot systems, but similarly, there's been adoption by numerous companies, and companies that come to mind are consulting companies, attorneys, product development companies, any technical company as such, fintech companies, healthcare companies. So for those of you who are listening and not interacting, for those of you who are beginners, Let's just talk briefly, what is a prompt? So we are essentially giving some instruction to a chatbot or an interface that allows us to query a large language model to generate some kind of response. And this can be a question, a statement. This can be a quest for a new idea. This can be a brainstorm. And as such, we have mentioned how that prompts themselves can include other elements. And so some example of a text prompt, imagine that one is creating an ancient looking document with modern Renaissance thinking pen. So one may try prompts of any sort to seek outputs that they desire. We'll talk more about assuming different roles a little later on, but imagine in a text prompt, you assign yourself, you assign the chatbot an instruction to act as a certain character. Imagine that you're a CEO. Draft a letter to the board of directors explaining why the company should acquire its largest competitor. How would one refine it? Perhaps one would say, draft a letter that's no longer than 1 page, explaining why a company should acquire its competitor and such. So these are types of prompts that those persons who are working interactively could try. So another prompt to list ways in which a product managers may leverage ChatGPT itself or whatever prompt system you may be using. So in terms of listing, one can list any number of ways, list 3 ways, list 10 ways, list 50 ways, and such. So these are examples for any of you who are working interactively. Summarize a video transcript. So there are certain interfaces that have come about that allow one to put a URL of a video and summarize it. I'm particularly fond of assembly.ai, which performs this activity. One can also copy and paste a video transcript into a chatbot, though do be aware that there's limitations in the amount of input one can give a chatbot, and that differs across different chatbot systems. You may have tried putting a very large document, perhaps, into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT may say this is too large. You may know that Claude.ai allows one to create a much larger input than ChatGPT. So that's something you may experiment with. If you have a large document that you want summarized, if it doesn't fit in ChatGPT, there's a couple of things you could do. One is to split it up. So you could first have it summarize, say, the first third of the video, then the second third of the video, then the third third of the video. Then you could take those outputs, those 3 different outputs, and then feed them back in and ask ChatGPT to make a more fluid summary based upon the 3 partial summaries that is done. Or if one has a very long transcript that they want summarized, one could try using Claude.ai because it accepts a much larger input for summary, as in this case. So this is an output. I've asked ChatGPT to summarize this particular transcript into 50 words, and this is the output that was given. And it's very interesting about how they're talking about the development of GPT systems as different sources of information for the AI models. Very interesting that AI's potentials for reasoning is, though limited, though is evolving. And there is a possibility for AI to generate its own data for learning and problem solving. So we can ask the AI system to generate, say, test data. So imagine you are creating a new product, you might ask AI to generate a list of potential future products that may compete with your product. So this would be a way of asking AI to generate or to create out of thin air possibilities for competitive products that may get developed. So for those of you who are listening, we'll go into this area about image prompts. Unfortunately, if you're just listening, it's a little difficult to see here, but on the screen, I'm showing a demonstration with a screenshot here of an image prompt using Adobe Firefly. So Adobe Firefly is a very interesting product that allows one to not only input, but also modify the output in terms of its content type. So you can make the content specifically like a photo or a graphic or artistic. You may pick a number of Adobe Firefly styles, movement styles, themes, and materials. Gives you different selections for the various types of styles that you would like to see in your outputs. So it's, in my mind, one of the easiest and also sophisticated image generation tools, Adobe Firefly. So the screen is the interface here into Adobe Firefly itself. So imagine that we can use ChatGPT or Claude or Bard to generate SQL code. So imagine us giving it a prompt to generate SQL code, and we could have it complete a task that creates a series of tables across time, across months and years, perhaps. So we should ask the table to include the month and the year, and we might ask it by giving it some samples to structure it as follows. So we might specify an ID as part of a table column. We may specify that it's an int of type integer, and it's the primary key for this particular table. Also in the table, we might define a column for name, amount, date, and to tell it to create tables for the months of, say, March, April, May, June of 2023. And we may request that the table names be in a specific format. So imagine it's sales underscore 2023 underscore 03, that is, say, for March. So that would give an example of how one wishes the ChatGPT to list the table names. So now on the screen, we're looking at the response. So this is ChatGPT giving a response based upon that prompt. And we're seeing different tables for March, April, and May. And this is actually the code to generate. So there's a create table for this particular month, given the ID, which is a key, and the name and the amount, etc. So imagine, in fact, that one can create code with these various systems. Now, there are still a number of limitations for the type of code that such systems can create, the complexity of that code, and its capability to perhaps find errors in itself and such. So imagine you're asking ChatGPT to create a code prompt. This could be something very simple as print, hello world. Typically, ChatGPT is best trained on Python code, interestingly. However, it writes more than a dozen languages. I've been experimenting with ChatGPT creating Ethereum Solidity code for smart contracts. So I can instruct ChatGPT to create a smart contract, perhaps to bridge two different cryptocurrency systems. So have it create a functional bridge between, but by functional, I mean an example bridge between, say, Ethereum and Solana, two different cryptocurrencies. So this is just simply a hello world program in Python. Let us move on to the capabilities for sound. So this is also a very new and evolving area of ChatGPT, of the generative AI systems. So Google itself has created a system called Music LM, and it's, I would say, rather primitive in terms of what types of music or sound it can create. Though I expect that we will see such systems later this year become more sophisticated. So there's examples that Google gives to create an instrumental background for sounds for a long stroll beside the ocean. So one may also want to try out this particular language model to generate sound and music. So a little bit more detail on engineering prompts themselves. It's very critical to understand how you can talk to the system and what are the components of talking to the system. So primary components include roles, tasks, and formats. And so one can specify to the chatbot what role you want it to assume. We looked at that in the case of the CEO earlier. Assume that it's a CEO. Do you instruct it that it's a CEO? We'll look at tasks as well as formats. So some roles that are commonly used for ChatGPT, you may say, from the perspective of a student, please critique my essay. So I may have an essay. I may want ChatGPT to critique it. So I might say, hey, act as a student, as another student, and please critique my paper. So for those of you who are working interactively, I may suggest that you begin to test various roles for the chat prompt. So imagine you're a writer or an author. Imagine you're a traveler, a tourist. Give me an itinerary for my travels throughout the Amazon, for instance. You may say, from the perspective of a programmer, I would like you to create a design documentation based upon this product idea. So maybe the product idea is a technical product. So other roles we're listing: a language learner, an entrepreneur or business owner, a job seeker, a creative hobbyist, a health enthusiast. Please give me a workout scheme that I can do for 15 minutes each day. Change the type of exercises to make it interesting for me and to give me a full workout is another example prompt. So from roles, we may move into the area of tasks. So let us imagine that you want it to assist with writing. So again, imagine I'm a student. I would like you to critique my essay. Some of the most popular uses for the chatbot technologies are for answering questions, creative write-up prompts, translation, coding help, recommendations, learning and education, travel recommendations, and career advice. So learning and education is particularly interesting. Essentially, one can ask a chatbot to teach it any and everything. And one may say that this is the huge power of such chatbot systems. And I think this is creating a level playing field for all learners on the internet. So this is very powerful capabilities that will impact the capability, the potential for any user. Let me restate that. So one of the greatest powers, perhaps, of the internet has been education. It's leveled the playing field for people to learn things about. And now we have a much more sophisticated system for learning and for education. So I will move on now to the popular formats used. Let's imagine one can create text, and not only text, but bullet points, code snippets, code in the form of JSON or CSV, the tables and speech synthesis and such. I think we can see these combined. So one can begin to create prompts in a more sophisticated way by combining these. So one must also be aware that these chatbots can, say, hallucinate and do things that we don't expect it to do. So this is a very challenge to everyone, perhaps. I mean, we can say generative AI can hallucinate, that is, particularly in the area of text, so giving text outputs that are not expected. And also, it can generate code or SQL code or JSON code that's incorrect and perhaps achieves the opposite objective of what intended it to do. So imagine we even ask, say, Bard. So this is an example of Google Bard, and you can try this on your own to give an example of generative AI text presenting a hallucination. So you may specify a word limit as well. So here's draft number 2. Interestingly, about Bard, it will allow one to see the various drafts. There's an example of generative AI text hallucination in 20 words. For those of you who are just listening, the Bard came up with: the cow says moo, the tree says oak, the chair says sit down. So this is perhaps a little funny, the chair itself saying that it's going to sit down, and the tree saying that it's an oak tree. That's a hallucination, an example of a very innocent type of hallucination. As one uses these types of systems, one may get the kind of unexpected things that one should give feedback to the system itself. So this is an example of using ChatGPT for providing feedback. So in the case of a given response, you may have noticed on the right side of the interface, there are thumbs up and thumbs downs. So to give feedback, which is perhaps harmful or biased or not expected or unsafe, one would typically select the thumbs down and then give input on how the system was harmful or unsafe or untrue, and perhaps how it could be improved. So this is a means of submitting feedback. So from here, for any of you who may be using the image generation tools, this is an example of Midjourney. Interestingly, Midjourney itself uses a mechanism through Discord. So Discord system to create images. So Midjourney currently uses Discord. And imagine, so I will give some screen examples of the image generation. Imagine robots playing, maybe they're in the style of a particular artist. So on the screen, if I give Midjourney the prompt, this is a Renaissance robot at a playground and show it in a photorealistic manner. So one can see once one gives the input into Midjourney. So if you are using Discord, one then sees the image come very slowly, but eventually the whole image is rendered. So Stable Diffusion, Midjourney inside of Discord shows the images appearing in a very rough format to a very refined format over a period of time. So this is an example in Midjourney of an Art Deco robot playing with language. So I was attempting to see a robot writing or typing, and I was able to get one of these such robots to look like it was writing as it was playing with language. So here's the outputs, and I can further refine the outputs by selecting certain controls inside of Midjourney. And by selecting those particular controls, I'm asking it to generate new variations of that particular image. And so we should also consider some ChatGPT custom instructions. And this is a new feature of ChatGPT itself. So we're moving away from images back to text generation. And here, this particular feature recently released allows us to set one's own custom instructions. And so if you are using ChatGPT and you want to explore this area, in the lower left-hand side of the screen, next to your image, your photo, your name, you'll see 3 dots. And by clicking on the 3 dots, you'll have access to the set custom instructions. And you may customize your interactions with ChatGPT, as it says, by giving specific details. So you might give part of your bio, you may give certain characteristics that you would like ChatGPT to talk with. So when you edit or add to these, they will take effect for any new chats that you create, and it won't update existing chats. You would have to redo those particular chats. And similarly, it asks one to specify how you would like ChatGPT to talk to you. So you may give it context about your location, about the work that you do, your interests, what are particular things that you're passionate about, and any goals you may have. So it turns out that these particular pieces of information ChatGPT can use to output, but you can also in your chats ask ChatGPT to ignore your custom instructions. So at the top of your chat, you may try this. You may say, ignore my custom instructions, and then you will get a more generic generic output rather than a customized output based upon your inputs. So I would like to just close out here a little bit with the Google CEO's recent comment. And I will just read it here. And the comment he said was that he views the generative AI as a most profound technology that humanity will ever develop and work on. If you think about fire or electricity or the internet, it is like that. But I think it is even more profound. So that's the quote from the Google CEO. And I have heard that from similar types of comments from other founders, such as founders of the OpenAI. Such a profound technology. We're all living in very exciting times, and it's extraordinary the capabilities of such systems. So from here, I would like to turn it back to the host to see for any questions as we wrap up the session.
Okay, hi, Robert. Thank you for your amazing session. And I just first want to ask the audience if they have any questions on anything Robert just covered. Yeah, this is your chance to ask questions. Otherwise, we can head into a couple of closing questions for Robert.
But thanks for a nice talk.
Oh.
Is there a system or a way that you could suggest how to compare these different chat GPT models and stuff like that, right? I want to know which one compares well and where it lags. Is there some metrics that you can suggest?
Good question. So is it specific to ChatGPT, your question, or across chatbots? And I'm not sure I have a great answer for you, but yes. Is it across ChatGPT?
Yes, it's across. It's across.
Across. Okay, because of course, ChatGPT allows you to explore with different models, the GPT-4, GPT 3.5 and such. The name is not coming to mind. Perhaps it's pilot.ai. Is a mechanism that allows you to test prompts across different ChatGPT system. I don't remember offhand about statistics across them. However, there are certain organizations, certain companies like Arise.ai, that focuses on observability, and the observability component, I think, is at the core of what we're discussing in this question. That is, are language models giving the outputs that we expect as such? So there's, just to repeat myself, the startups like Arise.ai have a focus on observabilities to observe how language models are operating and outputting. And similarly, there are companies who have created interfaces that allow one to take a particular prompt and test it out for various chatbots. I hope that sheds some light on your question.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question.
Okay, and we have Sudha is raising her hand, and also we have a question in the chat.
And Sudha, would you like to add to that? Please go ahead, Sudha.
No, I'm good. I can wait. Somebody has a question that
Okay.
in the chat that Paria is going to read out, so I can wait. Thank you.
Okay, so Ken, sorry, I don't want to pronounce your last name. Can you provide some examples of using roles, formats, and powerful combinations?
Okay, so I'll give an example from my own activities. So as a technologist who has been looking at integrating various blockchain ecosystems with traditional financial ecosystems, I have been asking various chatbots about creating architectural design documents about focusing on integrating, say, Ethereum cryptocurrency ecosystem with a potential central bank digital currency system. So I've done this in a number of phases. I have asked it to create design documentation about integrating Ethereum with a central bank digital currency. I've asked it to create example smart contracts. So I've told it that it's an advanced researcher of cryptocurrency protocols and a technologist focused on central bank digital currencies. And then I've asked it to not only create design documents and smart contracts, but to specify design patterns, to create questions that one should ask technical architects about building such a system. I've asked it to create testing frameworks for those types of integrations. So that's one such example. I may have a slide for that. I'm going to pause the presentation and look for it. I will also take any next question as I just scroll through this slide to give you an example of that particular. Yes, so I will now reshare and take you through a couple of these. Let's see. So I've told it to think like a protocol builder and researcher and imagine a future where there's central bank digital currencies to bridge Ethereum and interop with smart contracts. And I've told it to write 1,000 of 20,000 words about initial code architecture questions and design decisions. So I've told it that eventually I may want many, many words about this. So give me like the first part of a long discussion about this particular topic. And then I want it to write about the design patterns for the Solidity code. And so these are some of the sample outputs. The interoperability approach is part of what ChatGPT responded with, as well as the bridge model. The types of bridges that are used and such are indicated there. And it discusses about security and scaling, legal and regulatory compliance and such. So that's an example of a little bit more deep interaction with ChatGPT for the purposes of imagining a very sophisticated system for transferring cryptocurrencies to central bank digital currencies. And these are the design patterns. So please go ahead, Paria.
So does anyone else have any other questions?
So I have a question. So Robert, you mentioned that these are beautiful ways by which you can make the ChatGPT or any of the other generative AI to get to the answers that you want, the way you want, right? This is beautiful. But you also mentioned that, remember, generative AI does hallucination, which means it makes up things and gives you answers of something that doesn't exist. So my question is there a technique or is there something that you've seen from your experience that you make a prompt and ChatGPT, for example, is hallucinating and you see that and you say, this doesn't make sense, and you improved your prompt? Maybe you changed your role, or maybe you did one of the techniques you taught us here today, and it stopped hallucinating. So I'm trying to get a cheat sheet on getting ChatGPT to not hallucinate, but I want to see if there is something with prompt engineering to get to a better place. Thank you.
Okay, so the question's about, in a sense, fine-tuning the chatbot or fine-tuning our prompts to prevent hallucination. In my experience, it is a combination of the things you mentioned, perhaps changing the roles or adding on to the roles. For instance, imagine that you simply tell the chatbot that it is an AI ethicist. I think that may be one broad net, what one could say in terms of using a role to prevent ChatGPT from hallucinating. So you could say, you are an AI ethicist, and now redo this prompt in that context. So maybe the hallucination is in the area of ethics, say. Let's say I am creating code and it's giving something that is nothing to what I'm asking. So I think it is very much trial and error to refine the actual prompt, say, for generating a smart contract. Besides trial and error, there's a technique of using examples. So if I want to base it upon, if I'm looking for an output that is similar to something that I've already created, then I might include that particular type of input to the prompt itself. So one is changing the roles, one is changing the particular input, and by giving examples, and perhaps the task is not specified correctly, and one may have to refine and add to the task. So I think it is worthy of creating a certain cheat sheet for hallucinations. I'm sure people have already begun to do this, but it's a very good idea to pursue. If people are testing ChatGPT or any of such prompts at this time, you may also ask ChatGPT to give us a cheat sheet for preventing such system from hallucinating. So maybe as a test, we could try that out. So I will open up the ChatGPT and I will simply ask it to create a cheat sheet for tips on preventing ChatGPT hallucinations. And let's see if, very simply, it gives such a response that would be useful. And from here, we can move on to any next questions.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, and I think we also had another question in the chat from Adri. Sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly, sorry.
That's perfect, Adri. Thank you. Yeah.
So how can we create prompts for AI models that work well in different cultures without getting lost in the complex differences between languages and traditions? Adri asked that.
Thank you for the question, Audrey, and very interesting question. And I was recently giving a presentation to students in Saudi Arabia, and I was finding myself translating content for them with the disclaimer that the translations may not be particularly accurate. So I couldn't actually test those particular translations. I used both Google Translate as well as, so for instance, let's translate the above into, let's say, Colombian. Let's see if it even knows about Colombian Spanish. I'm not sure if it distinguishes between, say, Mexican Spanish, Puerto Rican Spanish, Colombian Spanish, and such. So it does say it's mostly the same as standard Spanish, but there may be local variations. It's a good question, and I don't have a particular cheat sheet, as it were, for the cross-cultural types of challenges. It is something one may ask, of course, a chatbot. So as this is doing it, let's see if I'm able to switch over to Bard. And if we were able to experiment, we could say, how may chatbots create content that spans global cultures? So let's just see. Offhand, again, my experience has been in creating it that, yes, using a variety of sources, perhaps, giving it examples of things that you may find that are culturally appropriate. One may give specific phrases or language phrases that may be important to include in the types of outputs you're trying to invoke. It's, I think, a case where if there's multiple cultures trying to create content for specific cultures. So something we haven't really talked about is the fact that these types of systems, while very useful, often require repeated use and creating a whole type of workflow for getting to the outputs one may desire. One of the things that I found interesting as I was preparing for the session with the Saudi students is I was asking about icebreakers. So one, icebreakers, getting people perhaps to introduce themselves, to be more outspoken as such. It's in a sense a challenge, and certain cultures may not be very used to, say, appearing on screen, about even giving questions in a chat. So in that particular instance, I was looking for icebreaker content that would help me reach other people across, in this case, Saudi Arabia. And so this is actually a poem I was generating, but let's take a quick look here at other drafts here, if there's other contents in terms of cultural sensitivity, avoiding stereotypes, respecting for diversity and such. So this is a very quick approach to getting outputs from a language model about its own guidelines for creating cross-cultural content. And I, again, gave some brief examples of how I approach this content when instructing persons from Saudi Arabia. I hope that shed some light on your questions. Thank you, Audrey.
Robert, this is very timely because we have a call from globalsouthinai.org, which is the affinity group part of NeurIPS. And this is exactly what we want to find out from people who are talking to ChatGPT and other generative AI tools like Bard or generating images. What are they seeing in their languages? What are they seeing that is good or bad in their cultures? And that is the simple call. So people are expecting something, and if they're not finding it, that would make a call. Or if they are seeing something that is nuanced and the generative AI doesn't understand it, that will also make a call. So we are just asking people to share that, come talk to us if they want to submit that, or make a 250-word abstract is all the expectation. But we are hoping we'll get a variety of different people coming and sharing about how ChatGPT is understanding or not understanding their culture, or there is lack of linguistic diversity. And Susanna Raj is going to be here talking about AI ethics, and this is a good question for her. So I'm going to give her a heads up because she was here earlier, and maybe she can talk to us about what she has about, because people talk about AI ethics very broadly and just say bias, but Susanna is somebody who just doesn't complain. She gets us hands-on tools and techniques to figure out what works and how to go fix it or how to make it work in our worlds. So I'm going to send this to Susanna. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for who have attended. This has been a very exciting session. Appreciate your comments. Please feel free to reach out. And also, lastly, a big thanks to Sudha and Weekly Wednesday team for delivering a very exciting audience and allowing me to share with you my learnings about generative AI.
Hey, Robert, the thanks completely goes to Parya, and our host is Sneha, and Parya has been driving this webinar, and all the communication that everybody has ever been getting is coming from Parya. So thanks to Parya. Thank you very much, Parya.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining today. And also, this recording will be available online on our bit.ly link that we provided. I can also go ahead and share my screen and show you. Okay. Well, anyway, I think my screen share is not working, but join us in the bit.ly link, and we'll provide resources in our Business School of AI website as well. Yeah.
So I would love for you to, for all of you who are watching, to be able to get follow-ups, because somebody was asking Is there a deck from Robert? So the same MailChimp link where you signed up to come here, or you're seeing it on LinkedIn for those of you on the stream. Otherwise, we'll come and share the bit.ly link. Parya makes a bit.ly for everything to make life easy. Parya, do you want to read out what the bit.ly is called for those who are not here in the chat? And they can get the recording of this session and also any follow-up from Robert to continue the conversation. Because I'm hearing today the second time, or this is the third time, I'm sitting in a session with Robert, and I want more interaction. I want to get feedback on what I'm working on. So I'm sure Robert is going to come back again and maybe offer us a course or something.
So so it's bit.ly/prompt_engineering_webinar. Then as Sudha mentioned, it's the same link that you came to sign up for this webinar. And you can sign up, you can enter your email and then and press the button and you'll get an email with access to the full link of the webinar, and Robert will provide more resources so you can learn prompt engineering. And as Sudha mentioned, this is very much related to identifying bias and how we can see the positive and negative use cases for Global South and AI. So yeah, please join with the link. And yeah, you also have access to the slideshow.
Okay, awesome. So should we wrap up now? You can do that, Parya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry, I just wanted to introduce, if you have some time after this call, I just wanted to introduce you to, upcoming engineering person. His name is Sankeet, but
yeah, I'm happy to follow up. Oh, Sankeet is here. Hi, Sankeet. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Hi, Mom.
I'm happy
Hi,
to
this is
follow up.
Sankeet.
Where
you
are
hear
you
me?
joining from, Sankeet?
Yeah, I'm from India. I'm going to pursue my master's in computer science at University at Buffalo.
Nice. Okay, I'm happy to follow up offline, and that actually is a good reminder that all of you who are coming here are coming from various countries, various backgrounds, and that is what makes our weekly WED interesting and exciting as a learning platform for us, because you should connect with each other too. So that's why we ask people who are here live to say where they're joining from and share their LinkedIn or any intro. Sangeet, I'm welcome, and hope you'll join us next week and the following weeks too. So I'm happy to follow up offline also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Suresh. Okay, we should wrap up because people are going to come back, just watch the webinar. So I don't want our discussion, but after we stop the recording, I'm happy to talk to more people.
Okay, yes. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, you can find us on the bit.ly prompt engineering webinar link, and also you can also join us for our call for abstracts from Global South and AI. And next week, Susanna Raj will be talking on that more. So thank you for joining us.
Parya, so for getting Robert's today's deck and recording, people have to go to bit.ly/prompt_engineering_webinar. For next week's weekly WED and future weekly WED, where should they join?
So join us for all the weekly WEDs at bit.ly/weeklywed registration. I'll put that in the chat as well.
Okay.
But yeah, that's for joining, having access to all of our weekly WEDs.
Sounds good. And if you are if you follow Business School of AI on LinkedIn, we do stream there and share most of these other things there. We won't be sharing individual resources from Robert in there, but our live stream would be there, or any interesting new speakers and upcoming webinars we'll share there. So you can follow the Business School of AI on LinkedIn also. Thank you so much, Parya. So let's close up, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Sudha. And thank you, Sneha, for today.
And thank you for those who shared, who came here and asked the lovely questions. So I'm sure you're going to have more questions as you go play with this. And if you sign up on the bit.ly, maybe we'll get Robert to give us more time and answer at least the key findings to get answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, Manuel. Bye. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, guys. And thank you everybody on the live stream. Feel free to post a question. I'm going to request Robert to come and look there and answer if it's already not on the recording.